lead that. Welcome to this session of the Solidarity Summit on Solidarity Economy Principles. And Rebecca, I would love for you to take it away, and you can share your screen anytime.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming. My name is Rebecca Kemble. I am on the board of the Humans. I'm also on the board of the Madison Mutual Aid Network and on the board of MadWork, the Madison Worker Cooperative Network, and a longtime worker cooperator. And my life is all about cooperation and helping people to become better cooperators and helping those cooperators to build networks amongst ourselves across the planet. And Esther, if you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll start the show.
Sure. So, hey everyone, I'm Esther West, and great to see everybody. And thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, we are both part of a Solidarity Economy working group, and Rebecca and I know each other primarily through worker co-op movement. We go way back. And yeah, we're both part of MadWork, and I was at the UW Center for Cooperatives, working there for a while, and now I'm part of a Johnny Cooperative. So, thank you.
And what does the Johnny Cooperative do?
We do a mix of helping primarily BIPOC people, but anybody get their small business and cooperatives off the ground or network with each other. And we're also creating some like Solidarity Economy cooperative educational tools for children and adults. So, thank you.
Cool. Do you want to put your website in the chat?
Oh, sure. Thank you. That'd be great. Appreciate it.
And I'll put the website for the Solidarity Economy Principles in the chat, and then I will start sharing. And then when I start sharing my screen, I can't see anything else. So Esther, I'll just say, I don't know if you remember which slide is yours and which is mine, but I'll just say which is yours. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. So here I go, sharing the screen. Oh no, I want to share. Yeah, this one. Okay. Okay, so welcome to our session. Esther, as Esther said, we're part of a Solidarity Economy working group that has worked over the year to do a first draft. We consider this a first draft of principles, and we're bringing it to you because we hope you can bring it to your organizations and networks and have individuals and groups learn together, read about them, add your input to us, to it, help us make a sort of, this is going to be a living document, so there won't never be a final draft, but we're coming to comrades within the mutual aid, Solidarity Economy Network, cooperative world to help us refine what we have here to bring it to the world at large. So we're bringing it to you first over the next couple of months and other groups. So we've brought it to the National Association for Students of Cooperation, to the US Federation of Worker Co-ops, to New Economy Coalition, to Resource Generation, to a bunch of different groups in this space, because we really feel like we need many voices, many perspectives, and because this is serious work and we can't exclude anyone, right? And there's a lot of experience that we hope to have incorporated into this. So just a shout out to Dario Parra, who made this our website, which this graphic is taken from, and that's actually a GIF with a waterfall falling on the website. But he did a beautiful job pulling this together. And yeah, I don't know who does what slide. So I'll just, do you want to do this one, Esther? And then we can just switch off.
Sure, that sounds good. Yeah, so we're here to invite everyone here to take part in developing this shared set of solidarity economy principles and practices to build our movement together. And we have the current draft of the website with all of the principles and the draft document. And as Rebecca was sharing, it's a loving response to our urgent need, collective need for more collaboration, education, and self-governance and solidarity economy organizing.
So our goals for today are to introduce the principles, process, and project, and to just give you a little bit of background into the needs that inspired it and to get clarity on what it is and isn't. To explore with you guys who are here how this might advance your mutual aid work, and to discuss your organization's potential involvement. Maybe you can bring this to members of your network, give feedback in different ways, and we can figure out how to do that. We do have the People's Hub. I don't know if you know who they are, but they're a popular education organization, and they are going to be helping with facilitating workshops. So if your organization is really interested in a deeper dive, we can have professional facilitation and tech support for you to do that. So it's not really our goal to process everything about the principles and know about them. This is just like an overview introduction.
Yeah, and so let's see here. A lot of this work was inspired by Elandria Williams, who also went by E, and did she found the People's Hub, or
Elandria went by they, and they were recruited by Sarah Van Gelder, who founded it as the first educational director. Okay. Elandria, yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about Elandria. She worked at Highlander for many, many years as the education director, and they were very involved in just so many things. I know Steph was in a cohort with her for a Bali fellowship. I'm sorry, I keep using the wrong pronoun, but they were a force of nature. And really, I worked with Elandria for the last 15 years in getting in solidarity economy work, getting that out to a broader public, like talking to unions about it, talking to community organizing groups about worker cooperatives and other solidarity economy things, because they felt so strongly that this is the solidarity economy is an economy for the people, and you have to meet the people where they're at. And where there is any organizing going on, solidarity economy should be, people should be introduced to it. So they have, especially in this country where our culture is so competitive, capitalistic, individualistic, that people just aren't aware. In other cultures, it's more of it's more culturally aligned, solidarity and solidarity economy, but in this culture, it isn't. So I worked closely with E, and in the last 7 or 8 years, we had discussed a lot about how some of our solidarity economy and cooperative institutions were sort of getting off kilter, and getting into a mode of just chasing money and getting sucked into the nonprofit industrial complex, and moving away from actually operating on cooperative principles and solidarity economy principles. And I know they traveled around the country really helping people try to get people back to it. I have been working on trying to get people back to it. But as just a couple individuals, it's, nothing was happening because the weight of institutional pressure is just so intense. So Elandria died last year at the end of September, and I reached out to a couple other mutual friends, Rachel Plattis, Eli Figali, and Cheyenne Weber, who had also been working with Elandria on different projects, like the book Beautiful Solutions. Rachel and Eli were working with her, and Cheyenne was working with Elandria. at the People's Hub and doing popular education around solidarity economy. And we just started talking, processing our grief for Alandra's passing. They were young, they were in their early 40s. And out of that came this project of, well, this is a sort of a common thread that we've all been working with. And Alandria really wanted to see something happen around unifying and healing a lot of the harm that has been caused in the last couple of years, and unifying our movements around something. And so we conceived of doing something that was not a critique, but that moved into the space of giving people a vision, a better vision, and appealing to our shared values, or what we assume to be our shared values in the solidarity economy space. And as soon as we started working on it, we were like, no, 4 people can't do this. Like, we need to reach out to others. And so we reached out to about 16 or 17 other people who we knew had been also concerned about these issues and working on this, Esther being one of them. And so we worked over the spring and summer to come up with what we have today. So this is really, Alandria was someone who loved debate. They really got into like debating things, and fiercely arguing with a smile on her face and so much love in her heart. Like, they were the person that you could go so deep with around refining and disagreeing and sifting and winnowing. And they were just like, had so much love in their work. And so I'm saying that because this is not like, we're not saying this is endorsed by Alandria Williams, but we're saying we know Alandria would have been in the middle of this, arguing, working on the document, having discussions one-on-one, having group discussions. And this is really in their spirit that we do this. So I just kind of based on what I said. So this tool is a tool to build unity and shared culture around solidarity economy. And in some of the presentations that I've done, it really has become a touchstone for healing some of the divisions that have come up in our movements. So that gives me a lot of hope. It's for deepening our collective understanding of the diversity of forms and viewpoints that make up the solidarity economy, and to continue to build from what he taught us and what we worked on together. Esther?
Yeah, so this is the group that's still working on this project. Just so you get a sense of who's participating. You can see we have folks from across the country and part of lots of different co-ops and solidarity economy organizations. And we also had consultation and facilitation by Dr. Jessica Gordon-Nemhard, who wrote Collective Courage, and she's been part of grassroots economic organizing for a long time and professor at CUNY. Jim Johnson, who's also part of grassroots economic organizing and also really just strong solidarity economy person, and Marcia Lee as well from People's Hub. So pretty solid group here.
So could we maybe have would someone like to volunteer to read this for us? I feel like I've been talking a lot. Ian or Karen or Stephanie, or I can't see who else is here. Because would anyone like to read this out loud?
Here, I can do it.
Thanks, Ian.
What do we mean by?
Oh, can't hear you.
Usually unplugging your headphones.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. So what do we mean by this solidarity economy? Solidarity economy rests on our shared values: cooperation, democracy, social and racial justice, environmental sustainability, and mutualism. We seek to create systems that honor the interdependence of all beings and elevate the needs of those beings over the priorities of systems based on individualism, profit, and private property. It is distinct from the social economy, which, according to Michelle Williams, includes nonprofits, co-ops, and social enterprises that seek to achieve limited progressive change within the confines of the current social order by ameliorating the effects of market failure, unemployment, and poverty. Solidarity economy is a transformative vision of society based on democratic self-management, redistribution, solidarity, and reciprocity. A solidarity economy only develops when we work together as a movement in networks and federations and coalitions that themselves embody solidarity economy values. This is where we become truly powerful.
Thanks so much, Ian. Whoops. Okay, so ultimately, solidarity economy values and goals can't be achieved without the inclusion of a broader set of actors and a firmer commitment to joint strategy, collective action, and solidarity. And so that's why we're really bringing this around to so many people, so many organizations, to hopefully get your input and engagement.
Yeah, and so these are the five overarching principles that we developed, and each has more detail below them on the website document, the document on the website, the text on the website. And our first one is accountability and relationship. The second is shared resources and shared vision. Third is liberation culture. 4 is democracy and process, and 5 is education and leadership development. And so, yeah, again, you can find this on our website here, solidarityeconomyprinciples.org, and there's Spanish translation if you would like that as well. And we're asking folks to go there and read it. And I think if you want to click on the next slide there, I think it's like, yeah. And so we would love your feedback. We also have values of cooperation, democracy, social and racial justice, environmental sustainability, and mutualism. So this is like the perfect group to give feedback on, like folks who have thought about this a lot and integrate it into your life. Like, we want your insights too. Yeah.
So this is how, there's a form in the website. This is how you can give input. And it's pretty self-explanatory once you're on the website. And thank you. I feel like, is there one more slide that, oh, right, but we're not doing breakouts. So I'm going to escape and stop sharing my screen. Or you know what, I'm going to share the screen again, but I'm going to share it on the website because I want to show you the way the website is organized is it's so beautiful. Isn't the art and it's just so wonderful. You did a great job making this. So on the home, you see there's a tab here. You can read it in English or Español de Mexico. And the way it is organized, so there's some explanations here if you want to go into deeper, and also under the about, there's a lot more explanations. But so how this is organized is under each of those 5 broad headings, there's a principle. And then if you click on practices, there's a set of practices. So what we really wanted to create is a concrete tool for folks who are struggling together to build a solidarity economy to actually, enrich their practice together. So something else we're asking for is if you have a particular practice, or if you think there should be another principle, we would love to hear that from you, and we would love to have you contribute to that. So, for example, there's, some principles have a lot of practices like this. Some only have a few. But this is something that we hope will be a really good, again, healing tool for unity, tool for building together, tool for getting through conflict amongst groups. So right now, we don't have that many people here. So it doesn't make sense to go into a breakout group. But I guess I just like to open it up for general discussion. And if we want, we can take some scenarios. So Esther and I had created some scenarios, and we can take a scenario and talk them through together and see how we might apply the principles. But for now, any general questions, thoughts, anything from the group, just pipe up. How you think you might use it, if you might use it or not.
I think for us, it's come at a perfect time, really. We're just, as an organisation, moving towards becoming a co-op development agency, and one of the staff with us is actually going on this. It's called Barefoot training, and we're setting up a I can't remember what it's called, a multi-stakeholder mutual aid co-op as well. So yeah, it just feels like it'll be really useful to actually go a bit deeper with this, and look at it, and between all of us, it feels really exciting to have something organized in one place.
Yes, thank you for the work that you have done, and sharing with others and seeking to get more feedback. I guess one of the things that stuck out to me, I don't know if it's in a good way or not, but the term accountability seemed like that's a major thrust. And visual, it captured my attention right away. And I'm wondering, do you want to center accountability in that way? And in what way are you really meaning accountability? Because in grassroots organic being, I think it takes on a different connotation. And I don't know which word will more accurately represent what we desire or what I'm experiencing, what you have communicated with the term accountability. I don't know, I haven't heard you, but I'm just saying what it registers to me. Like, accountability is an overused term, in my opinion, in our political, economic, and social relations. And yet, what are we really trying to get at in having shared vision, responsibility, and care? So I think that would be the word, ethic of care, as opposed to accountability, especially at a grassroots level. Because when we say accountability, we're looking at more of the hierarchical, right? We're trying to hold some other entities outside of us accountable, but how are we really caring for ourselves, as well as creating a culture of care and responsibility? I'll stop there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. And I'd love to hear you talk more about that. As I said, the way this got started was basically a bunch of people, people committed to co-op development and mutualism, being really heartbroken over the unaccountability of our movement organizations to the actual principles. So it started with us complaining. So it's interesting that you raise this, Karen, because that may have, we tried to do something positive, but maybe that using that word brings the complaining part forward, when we really want to attract folks to dig in and consider their own practices. Because we did debate at, last winter, the four of us were like, oh, do we write a manifesto or do, what do we do? Like, no. We're moving forward. Like, there's no time for that, right? There's just no time for that. So I would love to hear more about, I mean, if you think on that a little bit more and have more to say about the potential harmfulness of the word accountability, I think we'd be totally open to changing it.
And maybe I could share a little of where my
Mhm.
my thinking with that is too, or like what Rebecca was saying, like like seeing some of our own, like trying to encourage our movements to stay on a course that is solidarity economy, solidarity and compassion, and to me that is a key part of, like, to me, like accountability goes with like both like organizational, like structural processes, like democracy, we're accountable to each other, and it's not necessarily, to me, a bad thing. Like, to me, that's positive, to be accountable to some degree to each other in community, and so that's like like a general thing to me in democracy, and then working together, but then also I've seen a lot of really negative, like harmful stuff go on in the co-op world, worker co-op world, as well as positive, obviously, that's why part of it, but people abusing power, or like sexism, racism, like a lot of serious things that need that it's healthy, to me that's healthy to have accountability around. So I personally don't see it as a negative, but I also see where you're coming from with like, how do we make sure that it's like not just like like that we're working with each other, and it's not just like what do you say, like shutting down our community building. So that's me. I'll just share my 2 cents. but also, like, I think this is a really important conversation to have, and things to think about.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, because it sounds like, how do I say it? Well, am I gonna put this out there? Wow, I guess I am, Phil. That's what's coming up in a moment. Yeah, as both of you were sharing, Esther and Rebecca, regarding the context in which it emerged, it was out of your own wounds, and the ways that leadership was going awry, and there was no structure in place to say, wait a minute, how do we not continue in a way that's not consistent with who we say we want to be, which is typical in any organization, right? And so I hear that boom, I hear that pain, I hear the desire to say what is necessary to respond to this in order to open up space for owning the wound as well as healing from it, and creating ways of advancing what are values and principles, and how does it really become not just values in the abstract, but more in the concrete and lived reality of who we say we are, right? Yeah. So I guess where I thought I was going, that didn't come out.
Gosh, thank you for sharing that. I want to like cry. That's so touching.
But I guess I'm back to, I agree with you, Esther, that accountability is not negative. I think I was just naming in the ways that it has been used and abused and it only becomes with mostly used in power differential contexts. And that was true as well as I heard your experience and Rebecca's. It was the leaders who were abusing and using and abusing the power. So it's like, we have no structure or mechanism to say, are you not going to continue to do this to us? And so I hear that. And I think that that's part of the work. I guess I'm still questioning, is accountability the term to use? I guess I'm still landing there. Yeah. And how do we, especially around both Black feminists and white feminists, naming the ethic of care as something that is unused and unarticulated, especially in our grassroots organizing experience. And what I was going to share is going to come out now. Diane Nash, who is, she's still with us, part of the civil rights movement, who was part of the Freedom Riders in Nashville, who was able to continue the work of what happened in the 1960s as a student. But one of the significant things that she just named in an interview on on Girl Track, on Black History Bootcamp, a podcast, of how Black civil rights leaders of the 60s and 50s had learned nonviolence and a love ethic that they were able to see and respond to their white oppressors with sympathy and empathy. However, I don't think, in my humble opinion, it was really modeled within the group with one another, and the difficulties and the tensions and the different ideologies that emerge throughout time, that there was no structure and process. Say, how do we give that same empathy and sympathy to our oppressor, to one another in that process? So what I'm saying is, I think we have to, yes, name that and own it, and then look at ways to heal and care for one another, and not just looking at how we care to the oppressor, but also how we care for one another.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Karen.
Can I say, and I keep thinking of mutual care and responsibility, and I appreciate, I appreciate actually, especially what you were just saying about how we show that love to each other, and I feel like the accountability thing is, I also feel that reaction in a variety of ways. Like I want ways to hold each other mutually responsible. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed for several years is I've felt that in a lot of contexts, it feels like working on social justice or working on justice or any kind of justice or anything feels like a clique and a million different cliques, and you can get kicked out really easily, or you might just not feel like you can be part of that. And to me, the essence of any kind of justice, social justice, is not having those kind of barriers anymore. I always keep coming back to the phrase, pain not transformed is transferred. And I do feel like our increasing fragmentation is, our representation of our own feeling of unworthy of being in this world. So anyhow, that's all. I love the notion of having an ethos of mutual care and responsibility that actually is understood and lived up to, and striving toward it. I don't know exactly the path.
Do you mind if I just follow on that, what Stephanie said? It seems like that that kind of the fragmentation is maybe coming out of this desire to hold others accountable, but we haven't always found gentle or really the best ways to, the most compassionate ways to do that. And so, and to receive it, you know, we haven't kind of learned necessarily either of those skills super well. And so, you know, it can come across as harsh, like if we're, you know, misgendering someone, or, you know, and then we get kind of like, we feel like we get slapped for it. And I think that's part of like, oh, that's, but we're trying to hold people accountable. But then it ends up feeling very, you know, feeling so uncomfortable. And I think there's something there where there's an accountability, I guess, needed, but it needs to come across in a way like say a parent or a family member, you know, ideally that, you know, we know the best parenting comes by example, not by, you know, harsh discipline. And I think that's the kind of thing. And there are different ways to, you know, there are different ideas of accountability. Well, and I'm a parent, so that's like of a teenager. And so that's, I'm always thinking about that part, and how that is effective and how it's not effective, and how all of it just, and I have a really gentle, compliant girl just naturally, but still, like, I don't get anywhere when I'm just trying to, like, you know, the blaming or the, you know, it just doesn't work. It just backfires and it just creates more problems. And to treat each other with some kind of care at the same time as you know, because there does need to be, you know, boundaries respected and needs respected and so forth. And that's just the whole challenge of this, is coming away from how society traditionally has, you know, tried to do that, which hasn't worked in so many ways, and to try to reconstruct that. Yeah, that's all.
That's awesome. I hope you don't mind. I'm taking notes on everything you're all saying and going to bring them back to the group, because this is something, I think this is a really deep conversation that needs to be had. And I was just looking over some of those practices in that section, and they do talk about response, care, and responsibility, and like that impulse is there, but that word just seems to be so triggering. And yes, Karen, it does come out of wounds, does come out of that wounded place. And therefore there, you know, some of the formulation is going to reflect some of that. And I think we can think and discuss more about this and come up with a more positive, inviting way of talking about these things. So anything else that, like, I'm not assuming that any of you have, you know, looked at the principles at all or the practices in there. And again, we're just presenting this as an opportunity for you all to think about it yourselves, help us think about it together. And so wondering if there's any other discussion we 7 would like to have while we're here together about this, about any part of it. Because that last one on accountability was rich. Oh, and I see Esther needs to leave at 1:15. So
I'm curious, so I'm happy to go any other direction too, but I'm curious if we would have gone in breakout rooms and like what we would be doing, or I'm curious about like getting into some of the practices a bit and some of the scenarios. Like it's one thing to talk about what principles we believe in, and as we've all experienced, it's another thing to act them.
Oh, Rebecca, you're on mute.
So these were some scenarios we made for the worker co-op thing. So they're going to be about worker co-ops, but when they did NASCO, they did some housing co-op scenarios, and your group could, think about some of those. So this is a fellow worker owner who's been showing up late to work on occasion. This impacts the abilities of the co-op to do its best work. Other co-op members want to learn why and give them a chance to rectify the issue. They will ask if they can be of support or why, such as if it's due to unforeseen childcare, late public transportation, etc., and to see if it becomes a pattern after working to address it. What are considerations and ways this could go? And so what we asked the breakout group to do is, first of all, just talk about it amongst themselves and have some of the practices under some principles just as reference to discuss how this might go. And I even have the notes from one of these breakout groups. Let's see, did I have them? No, I don't think I have them in this one. But Esther, do you recall what those groups came up with?
For this one?
Yeah.
I believe they were thinking to work with the person and see if the co-op could be of support. And so with accountability and relationship, so like kind of like in this case, like how do we like support each other to like I think like how do we shift from that more capitalistic mindset of people as dollar signs to actually like working with each other as worker owners to see how we can support each other. Like if it is childcare, public transportation, that's very different than if someone just doesn't want to work or, something like that. So working with the person, giving chances and seeing if it continues or not, even when and if it makes sense. So that's what I remember.
Yeah, I remember I remember them also saying, well, maybe we need to look at what is our devotion to like timeliness and flip the script and say, well, okay, maybe we do need to ask if this person is having issues, but why are we all worked up about it? Are there, what are all of the concerns all the way around? And does the organization need help with dealing with whatever is, triggering that? Like basically going beyond surface level and questioning the assumptions of what it means, like the value of on-timeness in that particular group. So that's what one group of people came up with. Another scenario was possible worker owners of a startup co-op are finding that the co-op developers who supported their work getting off the ground have integrated themselves to the point where the possible worker owners don't always know how decisions are being made, no meeting notes, etc., and they make decisions for the co-op without proper possible worker owner input. Finances are never shared except in very general terms. A complicating factor is that the developers are also putting money into the co-op. What do you do as an aspiring worker owner of this co-op to build your power? And this is getting into some technicalities about worker co-ops, but it's really about power differentials and finances involved with power differentials. And I'm going to go back to some of those principles that are under shared resources and shared vision around data transparency, creating abundance, not scarcity, cooperating with access to resources across all levels, and then the autonomy and independence of worker co-ops, especially vis-a-vis other outside influences, especially developers. So that's another one. Just anyone chime in. I'm just going to go through this just to give an example of how we did this.
Can I just mention?
Yeah.
There's I think sometimes accountability. What maybe it's mostly trying to get at is clarity, and I think that, you know, in my experience, sometimes with cooperative endeavors, there's just kind of this basic trust that, oh, we'll work things out as we go along. Everyone's on the same page, you know, there's goodwill on all sides. And so we don't really have to sit down and like make a contract or, you know, spell out every detail. But I think that sometimes is what gets us in trouble, because by failing to reach that, we don't have as much clarity if we haven't sat down and tried to get through, and it's work and we all hate it and we're so busy. And so it just really seems like better to dispense with that whole thing, right? And just deal with things as they come up. But to start with something is, you know, I mean, that just a basic level of understanding, and you know, maybe that's going to be different in every case, but that's where you know, that's it's really hard for people to you know, recognize, like we can't really hold someone accountable for something that they really didn't agree to, right? That's just my thing, just getting clarity sometimes.
Yeah.
Because then it's easier to go back and have the conversation about it and say, okay, we've noticed this. It's been hard for you to, you know, come, you know, arrive on time, and then how can we support you in that?
I feel like this is almost where, like, to me, like, well, it's interesting because I think this is a big document with kind of for like that may, you know, that the folks can bring many different situations to, like a range, and so it is interesting, like trying to make sure it's like thoughtful and how, like, in applying to everything, you know, or do we specify, maybe we need to add a little more nuance, or, you know, because I agree with you, for like, say, like people who are trying to live in solidarity and care with each other and actively are working towards that, even if it's not perfect. And then on the other hand, I've seen sometimes I've seen people in positions of either organizational power or default social power, like founder syndrome, you know, founder syndrome, maybe, like, you know, say, I really don't care what they think, I'm going to do this anyway. And they don't they aren't actively trying. So to me, those are two extremely different situations. And so I feel like I need to go back and think about, think with my hat on, like, okay, like, what's this, flesh this out somewhere in my own thoughts. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Anyone else have thoughts?
I guess I will just add what was coming up for me as both Esther and Ardell was speaking was the proverb, if African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, you have to go in community, go slow. So everything is going to be much slower than the ways that we in a non-solidarity economy, right? And so therefore we have to be patient with what that means for our now, as well as how to respond in moving forward as we dealing with this is in community, this is in solidarity and not unilateral decisions being made. If we wanted that, we wouldn't be called a solidarity economy. And so I think that is true of the difference between how people may perceive or what constitutes us moving forward or moving at all.
Yeah. I think one of the practices under that accountability was slow down. It was very specifically about slow down. So here's some more principles, not principles, scenarios. Worker co-op related scenarios around that could help folks dig into some of the practices around liberation culture. One has to do with, that thing that you were just referring to, Karen, the non-solidarity economy. Let's call it that. We have the solidarity economy and then the non-solidarity economy. But those kind of cultural practices. Another one has to do with like a founder syndrome, that sort of informal power. So it might not be structural power imbalances, but it's like informal cultural interpersonal power imbalances. And then the last one had to do with gentrification in a neighborhood where there's a white co-op. So it asked people to discuss how they might inquire about their role in that neighborhood and what they could do to support the existing neighborhood and combat gentrification. So those were just some things. And so for whatever your organization is, you can come up with scenarios for yourself and discuss them, because again, this is this huge living thing that's really meant to be a touchstone for folks, and for us to really broadly over time develop some refinement around this and test it in a lot of different places around the world to see what we can agree on. So this was another one about money and an outside person with money wanting to have power in a co-op. And then education and leadership. This one was about leadership development, lack of leadership development in an organization. And asking people to think about, how we might do that differently. So those were the scenarios. Let me
just throw in on the leadership. Could you have a co-leader? So you can have more than one or assistant leader, so you could be developing people.
Yeah, so these are the principles that we had come up with. And Karen, if you have, practices or principles that you would like to add, would love that. Like that co-leader idea would be great. Ongoing education is a big thing. Collective learning, democratizing educational practices, seeing everyone as a learner and everyone as a teacher, and just that culture of that's just embedded in everyone. Everyone is a leader. And then having some structural things like maybe co-leadership or revolving or whatever practice. And these, if you clicked on those practices, they would be full of ideas, and we'd love for there to be more. So that I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. So you can see all your beautiful faces and Ian's beautiful name. Ian is he's a co-worker of mine at Union Cab.
Nice to meet you.
Well, not at the moment.
Not at the moment. He has been a co-worker of mine at Union Cab.
What are some examples from your work or your mutual aid work and like the Humans Network or other positions you've had? I'm just curious, like, you know, like I come from mostly worker co-ops, so it's nice to hear other examples.
Well, I'll share something that we want to do. We wrote a proposal, and I would love to make it real. I was just thinking about it when you were talking about the co-leaders, because one of the things that is very common in mutual aid networks is there's a person who, actually, I was feeling like we embody many of these circumstances, including the problems like the founder syndrome issue. Like I do a lot of things unilaterally, kind of because I'm the only one around sometimes, because I'm the one who like can do it without getting paid money. So there's that problem, as well as I'm sure there's plenty of aspects of ways that I do things and that my personality is that I could do better at in the face of that as well. So having sort of like the clearer principles and practices and being reminded and having that sort of mutual responsibility is and can be more helpful. And the thing that I was going to mention is we wrote a proposal that I would like to do. We called it a solidarity stewardship, because it's very common, and it's almost all women in the circumstance that I know, like one woman who's like holding a particular project, or and it's not all, but that I think is worth noting, because a lot of what we're aiming to have valued in the world again is women's work. So at any rate, and we're used to like, we do the exploited labor that needs to be done and no one else is going to do it. Like, I do think that there's a buck stops here kind of aspect to biology and culture with that. And so the Solidarity Stewardship Fellowship would make an assistantship situation, like apprenticeship assistantship. So a leader of a mutual aid network would get matched up with someone who really wanted to become a leader in and do a 2-year structured thing where they can assist the person who's carrying a lot of load and be building the skills, and then be either moving into a leadership situation there or starting a project of their own. And part of why I bring it up is because it's like a really specific, like actionable, structured thing. And in my perspective, I think that we just have to start doing some more of those. So yeah, so in addition to having the principles and examples of practices, have some kits for practices, have some programmatic, I hate big, so yeah, I don't want to be all nonprofit industrial, but have some like structured practices that get unleashed and like with a very deliberate design of connecting and moving it forward in the world.
Can you be, I'm just curious, could you be more specific? Like you're talking like Is this just a brainchild of yours, or who's thinking about the solidarity stewardship?
We wrote it. A bunch of different humans, leaders are named in it, and it was a couple of years ago. So it was Dawn from the Working Group on Indigenous Food Sovereignty, and Anna was part of it. They're like, I think 6 or 7 different leaders. Kate, I think you were part of it. So we actually wrote a proposal and tried to get it funded by the Roddenberry Foundation. So it exists, and we could, like, you know, I put anybody into it, but it spelled out. It had like some very specific sorts of I guess structures and ways of unfolding. I can dig it out. I mean, not like it's like the most awesome proposal ever, but it was nice to just try, you know, aim to move in a direction to help this particular dynamic that is so prevalent and sticky.
Cool, thanks. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Just following from Stephanie, it's I guess I've not said much. I've just been sort of thinking because it's definitely that founder thing it's really interesting with the organization. You know, we started as a time bank, and well, the challenges of when you get different funding streams, that we've got a European funding stream that it's moving us in a direction, but in terms of what it's done to the team and the workers who are particularly working on that project, it feels, I mean, I'm feeling more positive now because we've just got 2 new people on who are fresh from Schumacher College in Devon. One's just has done regenerative economics, and you know, I feel like I've maybe half the team now knows what the hell I'm talking about. It's not been helped with a pandemic and working not together and everything, but yeah, there's something in, there's both amazing things that are happening and things that are emerging now, but also it's also challenging as well. And as an individual, I'm really tired of holding it. So it's like how I really want to step back. And I mean, one of the people, you know, I've spoken about succession planning and all of that, and she's really interested in that. So that feels really good. But it feels like a tricky time as well, because we've got a current culture that's a bit not great for me at the minute, but also lots of really good stuff as well. But like, I don't know, having something like this to explore all of that and also enable me to step back is really important as well. So I really want to. But it's challenging, isn't it, when you've been holding it for so long and you have a vision, and yeah, and also, like, you know, I'm someone that does connect routinely, you know, with people outside in the UK and internationally and everything. And yeah, it's funny how I always say work is life, but then, you know, we always talk about 5 types of work, but I'm the worst example of that mashup, you know, in terms of the thing about going slow, that feels like a solve to my soul. You know, but that's a challenge, isn't it? Because nothing's slow, it's fast, it's outputs, so it's honoring the necessary slowness. Yeah, I'd really like to explore that.
Yeah, we're really living in, like, we're holding a lot of contradictions within ourselves, you know. I know I am. I heard that from you, Kate, and the times we're in are just so transitional. And so we're really trying to build a solidarity economy, as we need to participate in the non-solidarity economy for survival. And how do we hold that cognitive dissonance when we're, you know, you're leading a nonprofit organization, so you have funders and you have requirements from them, but you have this vision and values that are way bigger than that, and yet you have to make yourself small to fill in the forms and to write the reports. And it's just, how do we care for each other really as we're trying to push off from that and trying to make more space in the solidarity world. Esther has to go now. Thank you so much for coming, Esther. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Yeah. And y'all are doing amazing work. Really appreciate you. And thank you for sharing, talking. Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Love you.
Love you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. In talking to the new people that have just come on board and then starting to get caught up in the sort of outputs of this funding. I actually said, no, this is a means to an end, this pot of money. It's bigger. We do the things that we need to do to tick their boxes, but the vision of this is bigger. It's the means to an end. You know, that was really clear, because it's like, no, don't get caught up in that and then we won't do anything around it. It's like, yeah, how do we use what we have to use and the sort of system that we're part of, but holding that vision, but ultimately co-creating and owning the vision. Yeah,
I call it, Kate, money laundering for the people.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. Exactly.
Like maybe wash it clean.
Yeah.
Ardell's got her hand up.
Oh, so I'm sorry, I didn't see it. I'll go after.
No worries. I wanted to, something you said, Stephanie, was almost just kind of apologetic about, you just kind of moving quickly to act on things that need to get done that no one else is, like the mom who's, just, it's easier to get the job done than to like hold somebody's hand to do it, right? Sometimes it just has to get done. And I think it's it's like a necessary, like I heard someone describe that as a do-ocracy. You say, we're operating a do-ocracy. Anyone who is willing to do it gets the power to say how it gets done. So I think especially early on, that's kind of how things get done. And then it's that transitional period where maybe, like I was saying, clarity is needed. Like maybe in the transitional period when you're trying to say, okay, as responsibilities get more widely dispersed, but we want to keep the intent and the the vision of what those who put in the original massive amount of work had intended. I mean, that's something where the clarity can get very, very important. I've seen a couple of situations where, for example, charter schools just kind of gotten a complete takeover because the original founder, and it wasn't like their views were so far off, but just, a groundwork of decision-making processes. And, if like just kind of taken over by the sheer, the numbers and a powerful personality perhaps, and whatever. I mean, maybe some of the clarity is what can, help to that transitionary process from the do-ocracy to the whatever else ocracy comes next.
Yeah, that's why I feel like like us building more and more practices and shared understandings just like this, so that explicit conversation of principle, and just even the practice of having conversation about our principles. That stuff I think is is really key in having those practices that share and distribute leadership and agency. And then there's a piece that is really hard for me about the slow aspect, and just another one of these conflicting truths that I feel, because I feel like the going slow, I mean, first of all, everybody's stopping what we're doing now, like work-wise and everything, I know would really be beneficial. I know that like humanity slowing its roll entirely would be really beneficial. And the forces of destruction are moving really fast, and they, you know, there is a like very direct, there's a very direct, you know, oppositional forces right now, and that's probably what needs to change. But that's the thing, is like, while we're slowing down to do things better, well, and it means different things, so it means different things at different times. So those are some of the tensions, and I want to give it an example, and it's hard, anyhow, it's hard to give examples without being like super explicit, but it's also not appropriate to be super explicit. But one example that has come up is in the nonprofit industrial complex, the continual changing of the staffing, like will like come in and be like, we need to slow down and like re-envision everything. And at that time, like you can be losing all of the groundwork that's been built up by the people who come before. So I just really feel like, I mean, like everything else, we need to go back to like looking at natural systems and see how they do, see how we do. Of course, we are our own natural systems, and figure out how to have these like pluralities, I suppose, is what I keep going back to.
Yeah, Stephanie, I hear you. And I know the specific that you're talking about, obviously. It's been in our local newspaper recently, and just very sad, very, very sad. But that's a different, like, this is why one of the, so in that principle one, it's accountability and relationship. And so if we can like just forget about accountability for a minute, like relationship is everything. And the slowing down in one context may cause harm, and while in another context it's necessary. And I think this, it's not like an ideal, right? It's not an ideal, it's a principle you can use. So it's not an ideal that it should relate to everything, but it's a principle of when you're trying to co-create solidarity, and especially in the economy, that you build in time for reflection, you build in time to check in, you build in time to make sure everyone's coming along, or if not coming along, everyone is, you know, who is affected by the thing you're doing is really engaged, or at least has the opportunity to engage. And that does take longer than just duocracy. So, but slowing down can also be a technique of sabotage, you know, also. So I think it's really important to just consider context, you know. And yes, we are living in a time of urgency, but there have been other times of urgencies on the planet, you know, and I think to build something that will serve, you know, my granddaughter. Hi, Kurt. Kurt's coming in. You know, it more intentionality about things is helpful. Any other thoughts or discussion about this? I'd like, again, I just love it if y'all would, if you feel so inclined, to spend some time with that website and with looking at the practices and adding, just fill in, you know, if you have something that strikes your mind, like, oh, well, there's this and there's that, just fill it in that form and send it to us, and we'll integrate it. And if you want to have more conversations, let me know, or let us know through the form, and we can support you to structure conversations about that. Even Kate, if you are working with a team that you would like some outside facilitation around, specifically some of these things, I think we could organize that.
And we had talked about, so I know New Economy Coalition or you're gonna host another conversation with New Economy Coalition, and we had talked about like maybe helping, or maybe the folks who created the principles are going to create a guide to having these conversations locally. And I'm really looking forward to taking the opportunity to have the conversation with new partners here, or potential partners, or and as a means to like get us in a values-based and values-aligned conversation that can help us bridge various different perspectives, etc. So yeah, I just wondering if you have places to point toward that, or if that's something we should stay tuned for, or stay in touch for.
I would stay tuned for that. And you can just ask me, what's up with that. And I think we could, there will be some general guidance, but we can work on specific ways that we can do that in our community here. And the team can support, and the People's Hub can support others to really tailor to the needs of their communities. All right, so that's all I've got. Unless we want to talk more, it's the end of a long day. It's really late for you, Kate.
I'm cooking. It's my daughter's getting married on Tuesday, so I'm cooking. I know, on the solstice, as close to the solstice as possible.
Wonderful.
So I'm cooking a massive cranberry nut roast thing at the minute. It's, yeah.
Awesome.
Good time.
Well, happy solstice and full moon to all.
You too. And it's not quite the end of a long day, because New Zealanders are coming on in a half hour.
Right. Oh,
that
yeah.
round table, where it's early Monday morning. So anyone who's up for joining, please do, so they don't get up early on a Monday morning with no additional audience. However, they're doing this also feeding their local work to like bring people together who haven't really talked for a while, like many, or like every project and initiative and everything. Like a lot of projects there have ebbed and flowed and sort of lost touch. And so this is a way for them to rejoin and regroup and get re-excited about each other's work. But hopefully some of us will be there too, but I will. So none of you need to feel pressured to, but please do if you want. Do we want to have any kind of checkout?
I just want to say thank you so much. It just looks so useful. I'm going to look at it, and yeah, I really appreciated the conversation. Really good. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you and Ardell and Ian and Stephanie and Karen and Esther for being part of the conversation. I've taken notes and will be, talking it over and integrating the ideas. So much appreciated. But those of you who were here yesterday know that my granddaughter is here and her parents are away for 4 days. So I'm being primary caretaker for her. My husband, Adam, and I are, and so I'm being called back to her care, which is delightful for me.
Thank you for taking the time away from her.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to thank y'all too. It was very, yeah, just everything I've heard is really, I don't know what to say. But I wanted to say that like it's I don't know. I find expressing myself in these spaces pretty difficult. But this piece about the speed of our culture, I feel like in my particular situation, I'm really trying to find ways to feel safe in slowing down, and I'm like really trying to listen to what y'all are saying and like be able to integrate it in my life. But it's very it feels very challenging and very hard to find the courage to do that. Yeah, I'm trying to find a question to ask about that, but I guess all I really have right now is just to express that.
Stephanie, I haven't been to one yet, the campfire Sunday nights, or Sunday mornings actually, right? But isn't that a kind of a lot that is, I don't know, Ian's comment just made me think of like, that kind of seems like the kind of forum that the campfire meetings are about, to just kind of process that kind of stuff, right? Like that challenge of just living in this.
Yeah, definitely. I connected with Campfire just over a year ago, really, and we started the Sunday sessions, and it's like quite a small group. Not everyone was there, but it was Sunday mornings for us. Until recently, that's irrelevant. But it was very much a space, an emergent space. There'd be something to talk around, but definitely the sort of the relationships that are built up over time with that, and care. And I, last year I was like really at burnout sort of stage, and it really helped. It was really part of helping, I have to say. But there's not that many spaces like that around, just to have those sorts of honest, deep sort of conversations. Yeah.
Well, are we keeping you, Rebecca, as you need to go do your caretaking?
I'm just hanging out with
Oh,
you. And I think
okay. I wondered if you were feeling obligated to stay, because we were still talking.
I don't have to go, but I'm just saying that Pearl might come in with me. Okay. And so I'm gonna step back from presenter mode and just be a hangout mode with y'all, and listen. So, and if I need to go, I'll just go.
Yeah, so we're kind of in between. We can just chat. I think I will stop the recording and start it again after, if that's okay.